Oh, okay. Get a car. Then go, take it. There's food right across the street.
Well, he don't want Mexican.
Well, if you're doing that, you take whatever you get and shove it down your throat, kid. Go get something.
Do you want to read that statement you read to the judge?
Do I?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That was powerful. My opinion doesn't matter, but I thought that was powerful.
Right here.
Okay, let me see.
William?
You want her to take her glasses off?
Find out too long.
I have to, where's my
You getting the shade?
You ready, Renee?
Give me just a second. These glasses off, my old lady eyes on. Gotta put the old lady eyes on.
It's working.
Alrighty.
Oh, you got this.
Oh, wait. I got the first part of it. Right here. This is the part that should have left no doubt to why we were bringing this.
I want my house back!
Woo! David, hey!
I want my goddamn house back! We just finished in Judge Carter's court up on the 9th floor.
William,
Yes.
mic further away from you.
We just finished in Judge Carter's court up on the 9th floor. This is William Wagener for On Second Thought. Rene Powers did get to make her statement. Her attorney showed up a little late. Judge started all over again to make sure the attorney was up to speed. And he tried to get them all to come to an agreement. That didn't happen. Rene suggested he grant her motion. They suggested they grant the 4 bank attorneys' motions. Bank of America is represented, Quality Loan is represented by the female attorney, right?
And then Stephen Daly is representing Bank of New York Mellon as the trustee. He didn't read out the trust because it's a fraudulent trust, so if he reads out the name, he's already committed a felony. And he's representing what he says is MERS. So he's representing MERS, Select Portfolio Servicing, and the Bank of New York Mellon as trustee, although the Bank of New York Mellon tells me they don't own the property or the loan and they have nothing to do with this. So, and we have that entered in evidence that Bank of New York Mellon, Gavin Sang, has made that very clear. So today, the goal today was to give facts and regulations as to why these banks are operating in fraud. They're operating in fraud because they're foreign banks. And foreign banks have no jurisdiction on the several states. They're only to operate in the insular territories and the 10-mile square of Washington, D.C. So what we know right now is these are all foreign banks who've been allowed to come on our land, usurp our rights and usurp our properties in complete fraud. And the Ponzi scheme Judge Carter talked about at the end, that story he told, I thought was very profound, because we've mentioned in our declarations and in everything that we're doing that this is a Ponzi scheme. It's the biggest Ponzi scheme in American history, so I feel very confident that Judge Carter did mention a Ponzi scheme because I know he knows that that's what this is. The legal argument I gave today after my attorney did show up and did make her presence known. What is also very exciting is that Judge Carter allowed me to speak as the woman. I didn't get shut up this time as I had in court before, where he told me to be quiet, only my attorney could speak. I think he can see that this attorney is not representing my best interests at this point, so he allowed me to speak, and I do believe that that's what happened here today. He recognized that this judicial system is not giving us homeowners a fair shake, and that's why he knows that I worked very hard, and our legal team, Carl Collicott, Maneva Curry, we worked very hard to get this pleading into this court so that it would be so easy a child could understand it. Carl's 94-year-old Aunt Dodie, when asked what she thought about the pleading, said, "Oh, it's easy. There is no loan, and they need a cash deposit of 100%. There's no cash deposit." She got it. So for him to say he doesn't understand it, I don't believe that. I do believe he knows completely what we're saying. He told me that I could speak, so this is what I said. Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 18 states, A, in general, a party asserting a claim, counterclaim, cross-claim, or third-party claim may join as an independent or alternate claims as many claims that it has against an opposing party. Right there, bam, that's it. That's our reason. Nobody can misquote that. Nobody can misunderstand that. We have a legal right to join as many claims against the opposing parties. So, this is a motion hearing on a motion to join claims, and the purpose of our being there today was to establish grounds for bringing forward these joinder claims. 12 U.S.C. Section 503 establishes my authority to bring these claims before the court. This motion is designed to conserve judicial resources and time available in order to make a complete argument for defining what I see as crimes committed by the banks. As regarding the factual background for this motion for joinder, what I have uncovered with the help of my research assistants, these beautiful people who've all showed up, everybody's pitched in, is that the banks that extend credit in these mortgage transactions are restricted by Section 23A of the Federal Reserve Act, Public Law 89-485, codified at 12 U.S.C. Section 371 to insular possessions of the United States. Such restriction is a territorial one to the 10-mile square federal government at Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2, which is not the Union of States federal government, at Article 4, Section 3, Clause 1. I have been able to isolate the statutes and regulations that congressional authority places upon these banks. The Constitution at Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 says, "The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States, and nothing in this Constitution shall be construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state." The Congress, therefore, has authority to regulate these banks. However, enforcement of the compliance to these regulations is not occurring. What I have found is that the statutes and regulations are all restricted to foreign banks. The definition of a domestic bank is a member bank, affiliate of only a foreign bank. Reference 12 CFR Section 215, subsection 104, and a domestic branch of a foreign bank is still under the territorial restrictions of the foreign bank it operates from. 12 U.S.C. 248, subsection 1375. What I intend to prove is that these foreign banks are trespassing on the Union of States real property without subject matter authority. Additionally, these banks can only operate in covered transactions. Please reference 12 U.S.C. Section 343, which requires that the bank make a 100% cash collateral deposit into an account prior to receiving the credit from the exchange of the promissory note at an international banking facility. We have no proof and evidence that these banks are in compliance with this mandate. I believe that Form FR 2900 establishes that such banks are required to account for such mandatory deposits before a financial transaction can occur. As the motion for joinder says on page 21, it appears that the United States disavows a liability for false representation of the acts of a corporation, such as these defendant corporations have falsely represented in extending credit beyond territorial limitations. Reference 12 U.S.C. Section 631. I believe there is more than sufficient evidence for felony-level violations expressed in 18 U.S.C. Section 1005, 1006, 1341, 1957. And for a memorandum in support, I now quote the following. The Supreme Court ruled in 1957 that it would be manifestly contrary to the objectives of those who created the Constitution to permit the United States to exercise power under an international agreement without observing constitutional prohibitions. Reed versus Covert, 1957, 354 U.S. 1. And what is going to happen if this court allows these banks to continue is that they are exercising a power under an international agreement, which is completely contrary to the Constitution. This is not permitted. Constitutional rights, particularly the 5th, due process, and the 7th, trial by jury, are guaranteed. Not maybe, no, if it happens, guaranteed by the Constitution against invasion, i.e. foreign law. There are limitations of such powers which arise out of the essential nature of all free governments. Are we free or are we slaves? Implied reservations of individual rights without which the social compact could not exist, and which are respected by all governments entitled to the name. So is the United States of America entitled to the name United States of America in these 50 union states or not? I say we are. To lay with one hand the power of the government on the property of the citizen, and with the other to bestow it upon favored individuals to aid private enterprises and build up private fortunes, which we know is exactly what's happening in this Ponzi scheme across our country, is nonetheless a robbery because it is done under the forms of law. Anything done under the color of law, fraud upon the court. A government which recognized no such rights, which held the lives, the liberty, and property of its citizens subject at all times to the absolute disposition and unlimited control of even the most democratic depository of power, is after all but despotism. It is true, it is despotism of the many, of the majority, if you choose to call it so, but nonetheless despotism. Loan Association versus Topeka, 87 U.S. 20 Law, 655, 1874. Despotism is the exercise of absolute cruel and oppressive power. And that's why I moved to court for jury.
She certainly did, and when she finished that, there was an applause. Where's the applause now?
Woo! Yay!
Judge Carter did not take well to the applause from the 60-so people who had their joinders rejected.
Actually, there was 100 and at least 60, not 60. There was over 160 to 180. But misquoted.
But there was 60 in court.
Yes.
We literally filled that courtroom, and I didn't raise my hand because I'm media and I didn't file a joinder. But it was clear to me, Judge Carter then went into a discussion of liquidity and the crisis, and basically looking at Renee and saying, well, a lot of people lost their homes in '07, and there was the liquidity crisis, and the government bailed out banks, even bailing out banks that didn't want bailouts, didn't need the bail, that were actually secure in their financial status.
Which, if you look at what I just read, that is exactly what is meant not to happen. It would be manifestly contrary to the objectives of those who created the Constitution to permit the United States to exercise power under an international agreement.
I get that.
And that's what that was, bailing out the banks.
Right.
That was an international agreement with foreign entities to give them the bailout, when in fact, if they failed, there would be no failure for us, just like Iceland. Iceland
arrested their bankers.
Arrested the bankers. They crossed out every mortgage in the country. And
all the
2 months,
mortgages were canceled, and Carter is sitting on the chance.
well, and 2 months
to
later,
do that here.
$30,000 was given to every citizen of Iceland. Wow. Every one of them. So what we have here is despotism in the event that Judge Carter does not rule properly, because as we know, the Constitution and the regulations I read today, the legal argument is right here, and under the FDIC versus Fitzpatrick, it gives me even further right to bring this cause of action privately. Come on over here, Manita.
Okay.
Manita.
Hi,
This is
everybody.
Manita.
She's the paralegal. She wrote these. She's a legal assistant who did all the legal work.
I just want to say that Judge Carter, he's a fair man. And what I heard him say is he's going to go in his chambers and make a decision as to whether he's going to rule for a Fourth Amendment amended complaint, so that we can coordinate and consolidate the joinder with the other claims, or rule. So that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting to see if he's going to just go on and rule for the Fourth Amendment complaint, and that's in our favor.
It is, and he did say
yes.
that. He made it very, and he did shake his head and say what he's
That's in our
inclined to do.
favor.
That's in our
Because
favor.
so that tells me that he does understand. He summarized very well
Yes, he did.
about congressional intent, and had the bank stuck to what the Title 12 and regulations guidelines were. These people of our United States of America would not be harmed right now. So he did summarize that
Yes,
very
he did.
nicely.
He seemed to be very knowledgeable about the fact that we have brought what no one has brought before him. And so with that said, I don't know about the rest of you, but when I've got something I've never had before me before, I've learned to stop, think, and before reacting,
And that's what he did.
actually take time. Absolutely.
And that's what he did.
That's what he
Thank
did.
you.
Manora, come back.
Okay.
I'm not done with you
Okay.
yet. Stay
Let me
close.
switch sides. Switch sides.
Okay.
The judge is sitting on a case of what I would call first impression. I say that after going to law school for 3 years and gone to 1,000 cases in law in 40-some states. He's sitting on a case of what's called first impression. It's going to be historic. If he makes the right decision, all these bankers are going to be in trouble. But one thing he made clear, all this stuff about frivolous lawsuit, he told Renee and her attorney when she finally came in, forget about that. There isn't going to be any retaliation for frivolous. This is not frivolous.
Yes.
He made that clear. But
That's a clap.
he also said, and this is what disappointed me, he also said, and we're not going to be contacting the Justice Department to have any of you attorneys prosecuted for what you've done. And Faith Brashear, who's here in the audience, she spoke up and she couldn't keep quiet. But it looks like he was giving a little bit to both sides. But Judge Carter, if you ever get on YouTube and look at this, I'm telling you something. If you make the right decision, which would be to fine for Rene Powers and everybody who later gets an attorney and properly joins in this, he did say if you got an attorney or you owned a piece of her property, then you could join. So you need to find an attorney. I would suggest some of you call Susan Yu. She won the Michael Jackson case along with Thomas Mesereau. And she loves this kind of litigation. She doesn't leave any stone unturned. She also doesn't like media.
And I'd like, can we introduce Carl? Carl, come up here.
Carl,
come forward.
All right.
there was Cindy Brown was there.
But let's
today.
introduce today Carl
Okay.
Collicott. Carl, Maniva, and myself are the ones that put this pleading together. If it not for Carl's research of 25 years, this pleading would not have even made it into the court.
Did you enjoy this, Carl?
Immensely. I know it's a little setback in some ways, but the truth will prevail. There's simply no way to get around the regulations or the statutes enacted by Congress and executed by the executive branch. The judicial sole role in this is to enforce congressional intent in the implementing regulations.
Judge Carter seemed to be very stiff. I noticed there were 9 other cases went before your case, and he was always talking about saving litigation fees and being fair to both sides. So if he's going to be judicially following the procedure, he should probably then follow the congressional mandates, don't you think, Carl?
Absolutely. I can understand the reluctance, but it is a case of first impression, as you said, and the truth will prevail.
I think the truth will prevail. Judge Carter, you have a chance to be the judge that's remembered for 100 years. To be the judge like the judge in Iceland in the parliament that said, we're done with the banks. They're not going to rob us anymore. And what Renee stated is true, but you never heard it on ABC, Fox News, or CNN. I'm William Wagener. I've been doing...
Please, one more time. Let's get John in here. John
John
came from Michigan to help our team. John, will you
long
tell
distance.
them?
We're in California. If you didn't notice, we're in hot, sunny Santa Ana, California. Here, John.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. It just so happens that The attorney that was on the original Credit River decision, Credit River, Minnesota, is Judge Bill Drexler, and he's been a personal friend of mine for over 20 years. So I'm happy to say that the inspiration that people like Judge Bill Drexler gave to all of us through that common law decision is being now brought forward into Billie Powers' case. And I'd like to quote Abraham Lincoln to inspire everybody that has been a victim of foreclosure to file a claim through the help and assistance of an attorney, and let's work at getting everybody relief. Abraham Lincoln said this: "The people are the masters of the Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to remove those who would attempt to pervert it."
Exactly. That's right.
So let's all
Well
move
said.
forward, and thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for supporting Billie Powers.
Yeah.
So there you have it. There's one more little item that did not get mentioned in court. Apparently last Friday, and that's why I want Minerva close to me. Last Friday, excuse me, Manita. Last Friday, there was a meeting in the office of Attorney Angela Swan. Can you describe who came in and what was said, Manita?
Oh boy, you're gonna put me on the spot like that.
Yep, I am.
Okay.
That's why they watch.
An employee came in and
Employee of who?
of Angela Swan.
Okay.
Without my knowledge, I knew not who he was, so it's violating client attorney privilege.
He came in unaware of a lot of facts regarding the case and insulted us as the meeting was over. He insulted all of us.
He said that if she went forward as an attorney against the banks, she would lose her bar card, and that we could not have her. And he also said to me, now mind you, I met Angela through Maneva. I had never met her, didn't know who she was, didn't know if she was the color of green or of grape or what. This man says to all of us in the room,
It's a melting pot.
this is not what that attorney should have done to me. And when I stood up and I said to her, I don't want him in this room, he needs to leave, she didn't let it. She let him keep attacking all of us.
How long did that go on?
It seemed like a year, but I have no idea because I was in utter shock. I started shaking, as Cindy Brown can tell you, as my ADA who was there today.
Do you think that's why your Attorney Swan was late today?
Well, she was late today because she already told me she quit this morning. And I told her, you are going to stand there and you are going to be professional and you are going to read what we prepared for 3 days in your office. You are not going to stand here and tell me you cannot go against the banks. You are.
Who do you think got to her employee?
Well, all I know is Stephen Daly. I'm just going to make a subjective observation here. When we were in the court, and remember he left, and this attorney came back in, and Judge Carter said, "What have you lost?" That was Stephen Daly. That was SPS, Bank of New York, Mellon, Murr's attorney. Now you want to talk collusion? How do you have all three, right? But then he left, and shortly after that, she appears. I believe he was meeting with her.
Wow. Just for your info, alone on the elevator, I came down. There was one woman who I maybe won't mention. There was a bailiff and Stephen Daly and myself came down the elevator and I asked him for a comment, if he would say something on film. He said no comment. I said, well, just for a minute. No comment. He wasn't going to say anything. And that was my question. Did you hire somebody or do something to make that
She was scared. She was scared. You could tell in her office she was, I believe, she looked scared.
But she didn't show up today.
Well, she had to, because you know what happens in Judge Carter. If you listen to him today, you don't not show up in his courtroom.
Do you think that's the call he took a break from?
I think so.
I think so too. So this is what was going on in the background that was never on the record. I think you people need to call the Bar Association and anybody listening on YouTube and say, we want Stephen Daly's bar card revoked until he proves in a court he did not cause that meeting Friday and what
Well,
we
we
saw
also
take
had
place.
also had attempted break-in Friday morning. So this all occurred on one day. So we had an attempted break-in, and then we had her do a complete 7 o'clock at night after we spent 3 days creating this opening statement. So we had all the facts. 7 o'clock at night on Friday, knowing we had to be in court at 8:30 Monday morning, she says, I think I'm going to have to sub out. I cannot go against the banks. I'll lose my bar card.
That's exactly
Thomas
what it is.
Resro would not sub out.
My bar card.
He specializes in criminal cases.
Because you can't practice
His
law.
former partner, Susan Yu, is very good on the civil side. And I would just recommend again, if you care about this case, call Susan Yu, call Thomas Mesro and their separate offices, and ask them to step into this case, because I got a feeling, one way or another, this case isn't over. The judge may rule for her or against it, but it's going to go up on appeal. This is a SCOTUS case. This is a landmark case. I'm not even going to go into how my computer was tampered with in the last week.
Yeah,
so
my
I
site's
couldn't.
gone down 3 times.
I couldn't.
Come here, Faith. Let's get Faith on camera.
Come on, Faith.
Let's get Faith.
This is Faith for sure. She had a separate case. She was almost attacked in her home by. Go ahead. Explain what you wanted to say. Thank you, Minerva, for testifying to that.
Thank you, Minerva. Yeah, so I've created and posted up with the assistance of a lot of people that are in the industry who have been in the IRS in different levels, who have been with the Department of Justice, even an FBI guy who was thrown out to the street because the banks took his house. So this is not just happening to us, it's happening internal to government employees. And there is a line that has definitely been crossed. But this league website has been, it's been threatened. It's not so much threatened, it's been, can you please take this down? Can you please take your site down? I said, okay, fine. I don't know who you are, but you get us a court order that states that you want it down, because right now everything's disclosed under the First Amendment rights, as we were lovingly discussing with the judges.
Yeah. Thank you, Faith. Going back to when it was all, let me get this in. When it was all over, I said, excuse me, Judge Carter, because I put in a media request. I have a copy here somewhere in my pocket. They got it, and Deborah, his assistant, told me it was denied. But I didn't get the denial signed with Judge Carter. So I asked Judge Carter, is there any condition under which you would approve a television media request? And he went into a 15-minute monologue. I mostly listened and said thank you. But he said, never, we won't allow television in federal court. Never. That's what he, and I said, well, are you in, but he went on to say, but I'm very much in favor in state court, knock yourself out. I mean, it actually helps bring justice forward. Judge Carter said that. TV cameras in court can force people to speak justice and spell the truth out for everybody. So I said to him finally, are you inviting me to file a motion to break the rule and run it up to SCOTUS? And he said, something to the effect of what? Knock yourself out?
No, if it moves your soul.
Yeah, if it moves your soul. I mean, I take that as that. Knock yourself out. If it moves your soul, put it in there. I was shocked that he said, even as presiding judge here in this courthouse, the Ronald Regan Federal Courthouse, he did not have the power to break that rule. That's what he said. Whether it's true or not, somebody else will decide. Okay, now.
So what I wanted to...
Renee, did you have one last comment?
Yeah, what did you want me to say?
Oh, shoot fire. Oh! Faith actually put together an amicus curiae.
I did.
And sent to
the Federal Court of Claims.
And the Federal Court of Claims.
In Washington.
And her claim has been accepted to go up. She's now got to serve the Department of Justice.
Right.
So one way or another,
it's going to get there. The joiner's going to get there because the joiner was mentioned in the complaint itself, incorporated the arguments there.
This is what we call Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and the plan. Ongoing. So there is no failure. There is no quitting. They've SWAT teamed us, they've beat us up, they've stolen everything down to our underwear, and I'm going to tell you what, you can always buy new underwear, you can't replace your family, And you
Or
can
your
get
memories.
or your memories, and you can get rid of those who commit the crimes. You just have to be very specific. And you saw this is the fairest judge I've ever seen.
You know, you're right.
You're not going to get this kind of justice anywhere, regardless of
Just
how
walk
he
right
rules.
over there
We
and
will appeal if we have to.
Kurt.
But what we saw in there today, him allowing me to speak, knowing I had insufficient counsel sitting next to me, was huge. So we do
Yes.
have to say that we know justice. What is that sentence? Justice. What is it? Will
Delayed,
prevail.
justice denied.
Jack. Justice delayed.
Delayed is justice denied.
Thank you, Daniel. So he doesn't delay justice, and he will get it out, and he's going to speak very well about this. And I tell you, from what I've heard from people who know him, he doesn't sleep. His wife probably has seen him less than anybody in the country has ever in their marriage, because he works hard, and people who know him say he's fair. So if something comes down against us that doesn't seem right, it's probably because we missed something. And today, I don't think we missed it.
I don't think we did either. And let me say this: for those of you who watch my YouTube clips, and this will be on YouTube after it's on my live television show. About a month ago, every YouTube clip I had that mentioned bank foreclosure, the California IT, it disappeared for a week, and I was dumbfounded. And a week later, just as mysteriously, it all reappeared.
And you're talking about the California 18 again.
The California 18.
And the California 18's premise was recording fraud that was allowing the theft of our homes. And we took all of this through CJ Holmes to Kamala Harris, and she said she was going to completely investigate. A year later, we found out not only did she not investigate, but also in March of 2014, the Inspector General of the United States put out a report that said the FBI and all of the Attorney Generals did nothing. None of them investigated one thing. So when Judge Carter said that even the Department of Justice didn't look at this, oh no, they looked at it.
Yes, they did.
They looked at it.
They haven't sent every file, every inch, every detail, even every IP address that has ever been used to record these cases.
So we've had them looked at, but again, the President of the United States can't even get Hillary indicted. And he's going to say,
And the proof is obvious, and everybody knows it, and you can't get her indicted.
Right.
That tells you what we're up against. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do. I have the
Tell us who
same-
you are.
My name is Terry Demuth from San Diego. I didn't make a house payment for the last 9 years. And they finally came after me after I filed my truth in lending, my truth in lending violation. I bought O'Neill Garfield from Living Lies. We filed it, gave him 2 chances on a number of days, 15 days to respond. And then I filed my action, all filed with the county recorder. Anything that except the cost of the lien, there's not one there.
There is nothing. There's no lien. There's no mortgage.
No, I know that. But let me tell you what happened.
Okay.
They foreclosed on me a year later. Now, if you understand the law, this guy that talked to the title company today, you take a look at when there's an auction on your home, there's a stamp on there. It has to
Yes,
be
the
guaranteed.
accommodation step. We've argued that.
It's already got to be there, and here's the problem though. I went back to the trustee, who is another law firm, became a trustee somehow, thank God, which is all legal violations. Everybody's got a problem with it. I agree with it.
Yeah.
They turned around and they delayed my sale by 1 day. They made sure that the next day that there was nobody present.
Of course, that's what they do.
okay, but let me make a point here. This story that you're telling can be repeated a million times over. But let me, you're going to finish this, but let me finish. But what's important here is all of these stories, these are the damages. The actual conduit is the fact that they're foreign banks with no right to do business by congressional regulations in the 50 several states. So all of these stories, we don't need to keep repeating them anymore. Because you know what? Everything is void right from the get-go. There are no contracts. You're the bank. You're the bank where the energy comes from to create the credit. And they have no right to take that credit. And as a homeowner, the definition of homeowner in congressional regulations is member bank. So it's a trickery. They cannot lend to the people or the public at large. They cannot lend credit to any bank or public at large.
Say that
So
again,
let
Renee.
me.
No, you're
Renee, step
100%
forward.
correct.
Say that again slowly.
Okay, the banks. I know I do. Judge Carter.
Even Judge Carter said,
And that
slow
was
down.
slow. That was slow. So
Say it again.
the banks have no right to lend in the several states. They can only lend to foreign banks. Member banks are foreign banks. The definition of homeowner in congressional regulations is member bank. The foreign part of that homeowner sits at the Federal Reserve in accounts that they access the credit from that are in each of our names. So, with that said, they have no right to lend credit to the people or public at large. And I don't care how hard Mr. Britt gets up there and says Bank of America, they're open. Okay, well guess what? They're open in fraud. Because branches cannot loan, branches cannot conduct banking other than in the domicile of the foreign bank. Deutsche Bank AG, its domicile is Germany. Credit Suisse, where else? Switzerland. So we have a situation here that we have a judge who has everything in front of him that even a 94-year-old aunt can understand. None of us have loans. There's no credit cards. There's no anything. Again, I go back to Iceland. Everything's zeroed out. We call that the Jubilee. And 2 months later, $30,000 in credit, as we know, gets deposited for every citizen of Iceland. And the bankers were kicked out. They were jailed and kicked out of the country.
18 of those bankers in Iceland are still serving time. 5 or 6 managed to get to their private jets and flee from Iceland back to Amsterdam and London. But there's more than a dozen still serving time out at the end of a long, long road where it's very, very cold all the time, and they don't even have a fence around their prison because they'd freeze to death if they tried to walk back to the nearest Icelandic city.
So with that said, I'm going to go have lunch and see my kids at the Yard House. We're going to the Yard House in Costa Mesa if anybody wants to join us. We can sit on the patio and just have something to eat. And I got to tell you, I am very moved that we had the people here because you guys got to know. I didn't have to bring this case, and this is my case, but all of those interested party forms, that wasn't my idea. That came out of Florida. And I just thought, I made a call to our Jane Doe, who was a federal prosecutor, 35 years, prosecuted the banks, and she said, that's brilliant, because they hate class actions, they hate joiners, and she said, you know what, because you're the one leading the pack, they don't have to worry if all comes down and it does go to the DOJ, because you're going to make sure everybody gets an award. And I said, exactly. So with that said, even though he said this isn't your case because you don't own my house, what he failed to realize was these fraud charges, these congressional regulations do affect every one of you. So when he says you're not an interested party, that is the only thing today I strongly disagree with. Because as far as congressional regulations go, we are all interested parties in the outcome of this case.
He did say, though, if you get an attorney, then you could join this case. Terry, did you want to finish saying something? Face the camera. The camera's over here.
You don't want to look at me anyway.
Yes, no, finish
Go
up,
ahead,
Terry.
say.
Well, here's what happened. I'm going to explain what happened to me, though. So they finally take me to the unlawful detainer court, right? And they have a lawyer that did the foreclosure filed an affidavit. You know, first-hand knowledge. And I filed my demurrer, and of course it was rejected by the bank. I mean, the judge rejected them. So they had 15 days to come back and have the banker sign the document. Don't you understand that? The banker has to affirm that there was ever a loan, because that was part of my demurrer. Right. So you know what happened? The servicer out of Florida, which is a foreign corporation, and I know that because I did my research on that, came back with a power of attorney, which I know was not real because it was never filed, and said he had power of attorney and he had first-hand knowledge. That got rejected too, but the judge kicked it out. I broke my hip, went in the hospital, went in a nursing home. They tried to go and do an eviction on me. They went to the clerk of the court. The first two said no. The third one said, yeah, failure to appear. Well, I'd already called the court and said, I'm in the hospital. I can't be anywhere. I went down to my eviction hearing, and the same judge who people don't like, and I know he knows what's going on now, said, start over again, warrior. You know what they've done to me now? They went to a silent auction, folks. There's a silent auction out there you don't even know about. It's online. 4 times to try to get a minimum bid on my home because it was like about, they're going to have to come up with $1 million. That's what they said they paid. But when I filed that truth in lending action, violation on that, I filed that there's no lien on my property, that bank sold my property, they say, back to themselves, which doesn't make any sense. Why would you purchase something you say you already own? Why would you write a check out for $1 million and say, I just bought that note because it's in my paperwork? And if everybody understands, you start looking at the documents they filed with you in court. BNY, Bank of New York Mellon, Bank of New York, there's 3 different entities. Wells Fargo's got 46 different entities. Which one are we going to go after? Because you got to understand something, they all have different, and numbers have different responsibilities in the world, right? The other thing was even better, was I got a 1099, no deficiency. Like I owed $1.6 million on my house. My house was worked out, but they got $1 million, right? My deficiency said 0. Well, wait a minute, it's going to get better now. Who did he get the 1099 from?
The dog ate
The servicer. They said they're the lender on the document. So you want to tell me now there's no fraud in this action here? They don't even know where they're all at because usually the servicer is the one that takes the house, not the bank. And they flip it over. That's what the law firms and everything else have been doing.
Yeah, I can affirm what we saw is 4 well-heeled attorneys against Rene Powers at first sitting all by herself. And these 4 well-heeled attorneys all seemed to say, not me. All I did was do the foreclosure. Not me. We didn't originate this loan. Not me. We just did this or that. Only Bank of America implied maybe they had something to do with it because they took over Countrywide. Well, that's
Take a look at all the banks out there. You got Michael Dell from Dell Computers. You got Henry Paulson, IndyMac Bank. All those banks, Bank of the West, they flipped one out. They got more money from the federal government again and bought the notes from another bank. There's always an in-between bank that goes under.
I want to tell you, people that are listening out there, there's a slang, you can't beat the bank or you can't beat City Hall, same thing. Well, there's someone here that did beat the bank, and I was the only person in the gallery, not just the only media, the only person in the gallery. It was a case of Regan versus Wells Fargo. That, U.S. Bank. And Pam Regan's here. And the most astonishing thing, she'll validate this. Come here, Pam. This is Pam Regan. She won her case, and you collected money. Find it.
Yes, I did.
But your own attorney is a little sticky with letting go of the money, right?
Yeah, we're still fighting.
But she got a good chunk of the money. But the most astonishing thing in her case is the attorneys for the bank. I think there was 3, 4, or 5 of them. Only 3 of them could sit at the table. The senior ones were sitting in the back looking at the younger ones. And I guess the attorney was named Michael. He stood up and went to the jury and he said, well, just because the bankruptcy judge said she's got X amount of days to come up with all this money and we foreclosed right away the next week, you wouldn't hold that against the bank, would you? And I'm like, what? Did he just say that to a jury of people, of living human beings? Yeah, they would hold it against you. That case ended at noon. They settled with her attorney, didn't they? Called them during the lunch hour?
They ran.
I caught him at the elevator, and I said to the whole bunch of these attorneys, "Excuse me, but did you resell her loan 6, 7, or 8 times?" And the senior attorney, the woman, no comment. She looked at Michael, making it clear nobody was going to comment or say anything to that question. To me, that was an admission of guilt. That was an admission. They took her paperwork and resold it again as each person was buying it for the first time.
You're right.
They weren't going to talk about it. Yeah,
that's why they don't want to admit it. My son, we just got through a year ago. We got a settlement on his house for 2 failure to appear. 2 times they didn't show up. Then the judge said, the subpoena out to the, I won't tell you who it is. They sent it out to him, it didn't appear again. So we're sitting in court and the judge said, what do you want? And she said, okay. But they have, you guys understand this, they got 6 months to appeal. I said, Julie, give me 30 days to appeal. I want you to understand this, like I said, because it's an entity, a business entity, you get 6 months. Well, if we all study what we're supposed to be, then why don't I have 6 months? Because I'm supposed to be a corporation too, right?
Anyway, the lesson here is, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so now I have one. I can talk about Wells Fargo too. I can still talk about Wells Fargo. That's completely unintended. So, as I was wrapping up my cases for this film, I leased a house for 5 years, and Wells Fargo promptly illegally foreclosed on my house. And under California and federal law, both I had a right to stay in my house and live on my lease. But Wells Fargo promptly started trying to evict me. Within a month of when they filed the trustee's deed upon sale, nobody knew about the sale. The owner was not noticed.
Right before Christmas.
The first one was right before Christmas, and the second one was in the second case right before Christmas. So I opposed that. They dismissed their motion, tried to sell the house instead of following the case law that says they have to be the landlord. I discovered that a bunch of things, like the state of the property and things like that. I actually offered to buy the house. They ignored me and they tried to evict me. So I opposed it, and then I finally hired attorneys because I was legally no kidding. And this eviction went on for 4 years. And what I did that everybody can do here. Don't have a process to follow the law that was in California or anywhere for that matter. They think the foreclosure trustee does it. Oh, I know. This means that 60% of all the foreclosures, people are being as long as it's not evicted from their house because they have a right to.
Yeah, and I can tell you, well, and I can tell you, most of the people who are like number of
If I
cases
could write down this. Shortly after that deposition, Wells Fargo dismissed the 4-year eviction case.
beyond.
Isn't that awesome? She won money. Now she's got to get it from her own attorney's hands. See, the money went to her attorney, and she's trying to get it. I think he made a good deal with him at what, $100 an hour, and then he said no, he wanted a percentage when he saw where this was going. They didn't want this thing to go to an afternoon session. I heard the opening statement. And they said you wouldn't hold that against us just because we broke a federal bankruptcy judge's order. You wouldn't hold that against the bank, would you? Yeah, they did. And they knew they were going. You could see it in the jury's faces. So they settled for some she can't disclose. But my guess is somewhere between 1.1 and 1.2. But she can't tell. That's part of her. Okay. Well, that's it. It's a wrap. I'm William Wagener down at Senate and at Courthouse, where I think, if nothing else, a second American revolution to free ourselves from debt slavery has just begun, regardless of Judge David O. Carter, Super 5 Marine, a former U.S. Marine, who's going to rule tonight, tomorrow, for the next day, or maybe he won't rule at all. He'll just sit up. I don't know, but he seemed to be trying to be fair. And a disbarred attorney told me last night, Judge Carter is the fairest judge you could probably luck out to get. So with that, I bid you adieu, William Wagener. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, William.
That's it. To the art house.
It will be on YouTube.
It'll be on YouTube, probably in. Look for my name, William Wagener. Like Wade, W-A-G-E-N-E-R.
What's the name of your YouTube? Is that your bag?
This'll, I don't know what I'll title this.
Got to put a name on it.